My name is David Darts. I am the department chair for the art department here at NYU. I want to welcome you first to the historic Barney building and our newly renovated auditorium. Thank you for joining us this evening. I also want to tell you, since I have your captive attention, that we have a series of interesting events happening this week. If you happen to be in the neighborhood on Friday night, we're actually opening up the entire building, including all of our student art studios, and hosting an Open Studios event that will run from 6 to 10 p.m. On Friday night. On Saturday, we have our MFA Open Studios event, which will run from 2 to 6, which is a once-a-year opportunity to actually get inside and meet our students in their studios. That's again 2 to 6 on Saturday. And then on Saturday evening from 6 to 8 a.m., we have a gallery over on 80 Washington Square East, and we'll have a public opening of a new show featuring the work of Bob Miser. So I invite you to please, if you're in the neighborhood, come by for all of those events. But the reason, of course, we're here tonight is to celebrate the first, hopefully, in a series of events that we're co-sponsoring in partnership with the Brant Foundation. And we're so delighted to start, one of which I hope will be many talks. I'm going to introduce the director of the Brant Foundation, Allison Brant, and Allison will then introduce our speakers for tonight. So please give me a round of applause for Allison.
We're really excited to be partnering up with NYU and starting a great relationship. Basically, the Brant Foundation does many loans and educational programs. We started in 1998, and with the action structure, we've been able to open up the collection and the space to not only artists, but also students like yourselves, and we started programs starting with pre-K kids all the way through graduate school, and become part of many curriculums in not only New York City, but also local graduate schools. We're really excited to continue this lecture program with NYU, and extremely honored that Julian has been so gracious in donating his time. So I'm going to hand it over to Peter and Julian. Julian has an exhibition at the Brant Foundation that will run through March. We're really hoping everyone will come. It's open to the public by appointment Monday through Friday. So we hope you'll all come to see the exhibition. I'll give it to Peter.
Hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Welcome this evening. Very proud to be here and have this discussion with Julian. Any questions you might have for him or for me. We are doing the show which opened last week in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's sort of a monographic show of Julian's work for the past 35 years. And it was a wonderful show. Many legacy of masterworks in the show, and people are coming from all over the world to the show. Julian is, of course, very cooperative and very proud about the show. We appreciate this. I'd love to invite everybody to come up and see it for themselves. It's really an opportunity to meet these paintings. We've never been seen together, and getting the major plate paintings. Not been seen together since early days, and so Mary Lou and showed them. So turn this over to Julian, and again, he'll introduce himself.
Thanks, Pete. So is this, I've got, it seems like I've got a microphone and a microphone. So, hello, should I talk in this microphone? And then sometimes. You know that scene in Broadway Danny Rose where that guy, Broadway Danny Rose is telling Mia Farrow that he taught Nick to throw the mic back and forth. She used to hold the mic in his hand, but he's the one who taught him to throw it from one hand to the other. I like that. I thought that was really good. Why are we here? Anyway, it would be really nice if everybody had the opportunity to go up to Greenwich and see the paintings in real life, because it's different when you see them in real life than when you see pictures of them. But since we're here, Gretchen from my studio put together some pictures of the work that's in the show. I thought we could look at that. They're not the paintings, they're just images of the paintings. But I thought we could look at that, and anybody could ask me whatever they like. You can too, if you want, or we can talk about whatever the hell you want to talk about. So, why don't we turn the lights off, and we'll look at these things for a few minutes. And that's actually painting May. That's the last image of the slide projection. That's the first image that you're seeing. And these are all the images, real quick. Okay. We can turn the lights down a bit too, no? Don't you think that'd be nice? Is this thing changing by itself? I'll work the control. We can turn the lights down. That's me sitting in front of a painting called Saint Sebastian in 1979 in a studio that was on 20th Street. I guess it's interesting to see that the painting was painted in quite a small studio, but you get an idea of the scale of the painting. I think that's why the guy's sitting in front of it. That's the painting in color. Again, it's a painting that's made with oil paint and wax. And at the time, I built these little grooves into the surface and cut a hole in it so it felt like it was an object that already existed. And then I painted this torso on it that had these red lines. But I tried to put a yellow hat, kind of like a dunce's cap, on this painting in about 10 different places, but I kept seeing this yellow hat instead of the rest of the painting, so I took it out. Anyway, this painting is 9 by 5 feet. And I guess the grooves in there looked like, to me, they looked like these gates that you see that you put over a glass storefront. This is another painting from 1978. It's called Acatone. These are all pictures that are in the show. This is a painting from 1978, and they cut a mail slot into this painting. And Acatone was Pasolini's first film, and so has anybody seen that film in this room? A couple of people. It's amazing. Acatone is a really great film. Probably if you're interested in movies, you should see that film, because it's very simple, but it's really great. And this is a painting called Procession for Jean Vigo, who was also a movie director, who made a movie called The Planet. And so there's wax in this painting. There are holes cut out of it also. So I felt like when Bryce Martin was painting, he kind of painted the last paintings in a way where they were just sort of, he reduced it to a panel of moon, and I felt like I was reintroducing imagery into paintings, and so it kind of had a pretty wide range of possibilities. That's the first plate painting. It was made in 1978, and it's called Patients and Doctors. I think it's hard to photograph these paintings. You know, when I was in art school and I saw paintings by the antique paintings, I mean, it was a pretty big turnoff just to kind of see them because they all sort of look the same. But once you went to Europe, or if you saw Caravaggio painting in real life, you saw Velasquez or Goya painting in flesh, they're very, very different. So don't let the scale of the book kind of turn you off. And it's important to go see things in the flesh. Anybody wants to say anything at any time or ask a question in the middle of all this, please feel free to do what you like.
How did you hear the plates?
It's funny because at the time that I made this painting, I was in Spain, and I went to Park Güell and saw this park that Gaudi had invented, and it was a dirt playground, and these things were we had these colored ceramics that were in the seats that went around it. And I went to this crummy restaurant that had this white mosaic that was not very good, but I thought, that's really a good idea. I think I could get some plates and glue them down to an armature. And I was staying in this hotel room. It was $2.50 a night, and there was a closet that came out into the room. And I thought that was the right body for the painting. I didn't know what kind of glue to use, so I used auto body Bondo. I used tiled grout dental plaster. I mixed Roplex with joint compound. I tried everything. I didn't know how much drawing was supposed to go on the painting at the time. So this was very diagrammatical. There's the same torso on a plinth up at the top. And I thought that if you did some, put some shadow or color on one side of the line, like this white part over here, plates made the painting seem rounder. And in a sense, I guess it was an anti-cubist painting because it's something that's very three-dimensional, but when you look at it flat, if you actually sort of like kind of flattens everything out and take something that's 3D and make it into 1D. I don't know if it's 1D or 8D. This was the third plate painting. It's called Divan. These pictures are all around, I think it's 8 by 9 feet. Is that correct? 8 by 9 feet, yeah. So was the Patients and the Doctors. 1979. That's 1979. And I called the first painting Patients and the Doctors because Van Gogh wrote this, Artaud wrote an essay about Van Gogh, The Artist Suicide by Society. And I thought that was, you know, who are the patients and who are the doctors? It's a painting called The Sea from 1981. It's got a piece of burnt wood leaning on the front of it. There's a guy sitting in the front row actually carrying the wood over there with me, Mara. And I made this painting a little differently. I actually had these 4 rectangles and filled them with some kind of foam and grid and embedded the Mexican pots into the painting instead of gluing the plates on the masonite. And it was the scale was different also. So this painting was 9 by 13 feet. And that is a larger plate painting that's called the Mud in Mudanza, and it's 9 by 19.5 feet, or 9.5 by 19 feet. And there's some ibex horns and a piece of wood and a chain I stole from gurneys in Montauk from the parking lot. And, I think it's quite an anemic version of seeing this painting, watching it on this screen. But we're working with whatever we have. This is a painting called The Walk Home, which was painted in 1985. Yes. So I think what's kind of curious is there's a lot of people in this room. I don't know, has anybody ever seen, how many people have never seen this painting in real life? Almost everybody, right? So I think the one service that Peter's doing me is that if you go there, you can actually see these paintings and what they look like. And they look very, very different in real life than they do in So this is an installation at Peter's Foundation. That painting on the right is called El Espontáneo. It was painted out in Montauk. The two pictures on the end, one's called Lalio Apicantos, after seeing St. Jean Vianney on the plains of the Curé d'Ars, which was some line out of the Recognitions by William Gaddis. And there's the one on the right is that also they're painted on kabuki backdrops. Those paintings were painted in 1986 or 87. The painting on the top with the goat was painted last year in the summertime. So my daughter Stella bought me some Dufour wallpaper at Sotheby's, and there was a scene of George Washington accepting Cornwallis' sword. After going to Denmark with May, who was painting them a little bit, I was looking at the sky there at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, just was kind of cerulean blue in there with these purple clouds. So I got rid of all the men inside, and when Mike Kelly died, I wanted to make a painting for him, and I know he likes stuffed animals, so there's a goat there with a scarf, and he's got a rabbit on his head. And then I took ink and made these purple marks, and took a hose to make it bleed like that, to make the marks like that, and painted some pink dots on top of it. There's a sculpture called Rediva from 1982, and anyway, that's a better image of. So this painting was made by throwing a tablecloth at the surface, and that's a piece of silk from Tangiers from the 18th century. It's interesting to make a mark that's that big with your arm off a ladder. I thought that it was iridescent also, the kind of way that the silk and the color of the drop cloth and the pink kind of spoke to each other. So this is called the last view of Camiliano Cienfuegos. When Stella was little, her class came over to my studio, and I was trying to tell them that paintings don't have gravity. We do. We'll look different in a few years. Stella will look different, but the painting will look the same. And I said, you know, you can turn it upside down, you can do whatever you want with it, put eyes on it. And it looks pretty much like it did when I showed it to those kids when Stella was a little girl. Again, this is a kabuki painting from 1986, 87. And the head, I painted the head, the two marks, the bush, and there's some white on the top. But this was painted by a kabuki scenography painter, when I just added a few colors to it. My son Cy was 19, he wrote something about this painting. He said it was self-portrait. These are, this is the sculpture Gradiva, and there's two big draw paintings from 2001. I guess in 1955, some lady named Childress painted a little painting of her daughter who looked like a buttercup red girl. And I found this painting in Houston and painted some purple marks on top of it in 1988. 14 years later, I thought it was a good model for a painting, so I held it in my hand, and these are finger paintings. So, except for the purple, which is done with a palette knife, they're, I did one a day. People ask how long does a painting take you sometimes. They now say 62 years and 5 minutes. This is a sculpture called Gradiva, which was the name of a character from Freud. I made this sculpture from plaster and wood and chicken wire and then cast it in bronze, but I didn't build it from, I did make a little model and then blew it up. This was the scale that it was when it was made. What was happening is that as I was making sculptures, I'd get one back from the foundry and I just build it into something else, so I kept recycling the parts and made quite a few different sculptures out of Gradiva. Again, anybody could interrupt me at any time. How'd you do that? I don't know. Painting on the left is called Yosin, which is a Greek word for, a pre-Hellenistic word for the beginning of the day. It's also the name of the house where Andy Warhol lived. I lived there for a while, painted the painting up there. There were, I thought it was kind of painted like the way maybe a suntan lotion packaging would look like in the 50s, I don't know. I also thought that Ulysses and Penelope were definitely not going to get back together. And then there's some holes in the painting. I mean, there's a lot of paintings that might have holes in them. I remember one day, insurance guy came over and he was looking at the holes in the painting. And he looked at me like I was a little bit off. And I said, you know, when Henry Miller in Tropic of Capricorn was sitting at home, a guy came there to sell him some life insurance. And he said, okay, I'll take it. He said, don't you want to know what you get for it? He said, no, do I look like the kind of guy that cares about his wife and children? That piano over there costs 5 cents a week. That couch costs 10 cents a week. So do I look like the kind of guy that cares if he's got holes in his paintings? Anyway, this, the Yosin painting was part of this group. There were 19 16-foot square paintings that I made for the Entrepreneur in Bordeaux in 1988. So all of these tarps were found. They were used to cover boats in Mystic, Connecticut. Some were green. The pink and tan line actually found in Houston. But it was really a wonderful thing to just walk into that room and kind of decide about 5 minutes what I was going to do and then make the paintings for that space. I think that excuse me, I'm sorry.
When did you start writing?
1969.
What was that then?
Yeah, it was something about Miami Beach. But you know, it's funny because I looked at Richard Linder's paintings a lot when I was a kid, and I also liked Francis Bacon paintings quite a bit. I guess in 1974 I made a painting called Paul that was where it got essentially the word was the image. So this is again an installation at Peter's place. That's called The Mutant King. It's a painting from 1981. So it's a drop cloth that I used to cover the plate painting with C actually when I was working on Amagansett. And I just painted that shape on it, and then I thought, okay, well, you know, sometimes a painting can only have one shape on it, or two, and then you need to have another panel to make another gesture. So that's, the two paintings on the side were part of a group called the Recognition Paintings, and then came out of this book by Bill Gaddis, The Recognitions, that was written in 1953, and I made a lot of word paintings. So, I guess in 1989, I took those recognition paintings and I made 24 stations of the cross and installed them in a building called the Cuartel del Carmen in Sevilla that had been closed for 30 years. And didn't paint the walls or anything, just hung the paintings there, and we were able to walk through the building and just kind of discover the Via Dolorosa. It's definitely different when you see it on a white wall. But Pope Pius IX, they're painted on army cars that used to cover trucks. Pardon? It is 11 by 12 feet, something like that. It's just gesso on army car.
Painted flat or painted
Vertically. Didn't get too many grips on it, huh? Yeah. And here, there's a table that I made 30 years ago for Francesco Clemente in the middle of the room, Reaching Quadrupedus, and there's a couple of portraits. This one of Tina Chow on the right that was done in 1985, I think. And there's a painting of Peter's son Ryan holding a book called J.R. in his hand that was written by Bill Gaddis also. It was another picture. This painting is seen up close. Painting of Anne Duong from 1987. So that plate painting was made about 6 months ago. Ryan came with his favorite bathrobe, his favorite book, and his favorite chain.
Yeah.
It's a little bit bigger than that in real life, but it's so there's a room of portraits. I made the bench also. There's a painting of May. We just had a baby. He's 5 months old today. It's his birthday today. So this painting was painted last summer. And I think that's about it for the paintings that are in Peter's show. There's a couple of other things that are not here, but you have to go see them for yourself. You want to turn the light on, and then we can. So.
When you started showing your, how would you describe?
Hang on a second.
Yeah. Yeah, fine. It's a tricky chair.
Yeah, that's set up there for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. So, what's the difference that you see today between the art world that you came into in those days? And
Yeah, I think you have to talk into the mic. Okay, I'll repeat your question.
Yeah.
He wants to know what's the difference between the art world today and the art world then,
exactly,
from my perspective. The art world now is a huge conglomerate. There is a huge inversion of money, and it's a commodity. That being said, there's still artists that make art despite or oblivious or conscious of this activity that's going on. At the time when I was showing my paintings, in New York, I knew everybody that bought a painting. I still pretty much remember where they all are. But Peter might have some more comments on this particular question. But nobody wanted these paintings. Nobody was interested. I mean, when I started showing paintings, people weren't interested in looking at paintings. I mean, Gordon Clark was cutting buildings in half and taking the eaves of the buildings. Vito Acconci was jerking off under a platform. I mean, good artist also. The idea of making paintings, it's funny because I got a ride from Richard Serra up to Falkirk one day. Bryce Martin was having a show, and Richard was asking me, well, what do you do? I said, I'm a painter. He said, well, what do they look like? I said, I've been painting projective drawing test paintings. And he looked at me like I was insane. He told me he liked Ellsworth Kelly's paintings and he liked Bryce Martin's paintings. Essentially, they were, panel, color. But he did give me a ride. And it was a very, I thought it was a super exciting time to be in New York. I'm talking about before the 80s. I'm talking about just showing up in 1973. And I knew where the Broome Street Bar and the Spring Street Bar were. I didn't know where the fucking Guggenheim Museum was. And you had the feeling that anything could happen. Actually, was it 2 years ago, whatever, I guess, I was walking through the East Village, and, I think that New York has changed so much. Bowery, when I was a little kid, and come back from being at the Catskill Mountains, I was terrified that somebody was going to stick their arm in the car and grab me, because people were begging for money. And now, the Bowery is like 42nd Street, or maybe it's like, I don't know what it's like, but there's so much stuff going on the Lower East Side. It's a beautiful, actually, very opulent community, and there's galleries everywhere, and people are really enthusiastic about something. But if you're talking about art, I guess Joseph Boy said that everybody could be an artist, and maybe people took him at his word. If you see pictures of the Kunstmuseum, the Kunst Academy in Dusseldorf, when Joseph Beuys was teaching, I thought it was spectacular because everybody, it looked like the Bolshevik Revolution. Everybody was there. There are people on the rafters. He let everybody in because it is about freedom, and everybody will have a chance to do whatever they want. And I love Joseph Beuys. I think he was very, very cool. And it's crazy, but if you think about it, if we examine what happened, say, Joseph Beuys was the teacher of Gerhard Richter, Sigmar Polke, Winky Palermo, Anselm Kiefer. Anselm Kiefer's work is much more expensive than Joseph Beuys' work. I mean, even if he makes big paintings, they're kind of domestic in a sense because they're paintings. I mean, it's much more difficult to sell a chair with some fat on it, or for people to think about art like that. But I think there's a great sense right now of possibilities and a lot of young people making things, and I think that's good. But do I feel like the art market became, or people that were actually involved in selling of art, became more important than art critics, or more important than artists at a certain moment? I think, yeah, I think that happened. And there's a kind of a manipulation of the, you know, there's a quote, Gaddis wrote something in his text, he said, it's not, we're living in a time where it's not who did it first, it's who did it last. So I think there's a very myopic notion of what happened when, and who knows if that's important or not. We can discuss that. But
I can say something.
I think Peter'd love to say something at this moment.
I think it's a very complicated question, and it's really, I hate to oversimplify it, but it's like asking, in a sense, what's the difference between professional football today and when it was in the early 80s? Well, it's a major difference in the game. But we all still love the game, and there's much more opportunity for a player who goes to college to graduate and play professional ball and become a star. And the dream of becoming a star is what's really all about. It's not about the hard-working guy who becomes a serious artist or a serious football player or whatever. Everybody thinks about the dream of the star. That's what makes things go. A lot of times the stars don't pan out. The guy who sticks there and stays with the work and his dedication is the one that becomes the real star. So it's like Julian said, pictures have no gravity. And that is really true, because at the end of the day, whether you're a filmmaker or a designer or whatever you decide to do while you're being an artist, at the end of the day, people are going to look at your art and decide whether that's something that they really admire, or they really respect, or something that really tells them something. Today, I've been collecting through that period of variability and before that. And my mentor was Leo Castelli, so I've been through a lot of the different kinds of height and push. And Julian at one point was, you know, along with Jean-Michel and the other artists, David Sally, being the kings of height. I won't go to New York Magazine, I go to the New York Times when there was a big article about that height. These guys are the Boy Scouts compared to the artists of today. I mean, they lived a very kind of demure sort of life compared to some of the artists today. So, all in all, there are more opportunities for artists today, there are more educational programs, there are more people interested in collecting art. And let's not dissect what they are, whether they're speculators or they're collectors, and they want to paint to the back of their sofa, or they want to put it to save for the rest of their life. It's all good, because it's all appreciating something that is noble. It's a very important effort. And sometimes the guy who becomes the greatest collector started being a dealer, or he started, you know, whatever. But the journey brought him to a point where he loves art. It's part of his life. But for me, the difference really is the difference of our time.
I think you're absolutely right. But I think that anything that, I mean, nobody asked anybody to make art. And the fact that there's that absurd reality to it that no one really wants it to happen. In fact, when you make art, people try to stop you from doing it. And everything is sort of designed to stop you from doing it. So The fact that it exists is a wonderful thing, and I think that anything that encourages people to do it, I wouldn't make a judgment about it. People once asked me, what do I think about Charles Saatchi? He collected work and then he sold everything, and people, judged him or whatever. I thought, like Joseph Beuys, that anybody or anything that made people interested in art was a good thing. And so, and I do think that the world has changed so radically that, I need to learn how to work a computer. Everybody in this room knows how to do that, and I'm not okay with that. But, anybody else have a question about something else?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, okay. You seem very, very...
Yeah. Just because I gotta go back to class. I was just wondering, what do you mean when you say painting is behavior?
What do I mean when I say painting is behavior? Did I say that?
I thought maybe that was in an interview.
I think that's great, man. I forgot. It's funny because actually May was talking to me the other day, and she said, "You're painting your experience." And I think that's what's happening. There's a physical activity that's occurring, whether you're making an interpretation of something that's recognizable or you're just covering a surface. You're marking time in a way, you're deciding to do that. And it's the way that you behave that is the truth, or if there is a truth, the essence. William Carlos Williams said the truth is in things. So you can make that thing, and you can scrutinize that thing, and that's what's so great about it, because I could disappear, I could have a good beer bag, whatever, but that painting will stay there, and you can look at that thing, and maybe I'll never meet you, but you can walk up to that thing and see the way that I behave, because you're like a detective looking at the marks, looking at the way that, if I look at a Goya painting, if I look at the Caravaggio painting, you have to go look at Caravaggio's paintings, and in the flesh, you have to see them, because when you get up close to those damn things, you will learn everything about behavior. And I'm glad you asked me that question, and I'm glad I said that. Anyway, somebody else want to ask me? Yes.
Hi. I have two questions.
You don't ask one.
One is, your play paintings have always struck me as celebratory. And
Celebratory meaning joyful?
Yes. And, as you know, there's a great tradition, a Greek tradition of breaking plates during a celebration.
Right.
I want, maybe it's not a fair question to you, but do you remember your state of mind when you did those paintings? And for Mr. Brant, any plans in the future to do a comprehensive show sculpture of this man who we haven't seen it in New York for 20, 30 years?
Well, actually, there's 3 sculptures in this show. It's 3 there, but I don't know if he has a plan to do that. But actually, he did do that at one time. But anyway, to get to your first question, I painted the first plate paintings out of desperation because I was trying to make a painting that I had never seen before. So I thought that these plates could be a good molecular structure to have a surface that I could paint on top of. Was it a joyful act? I think I got a lot of joy out of it once I started doing it, or it started to become something. But I think there's a maelstrom, and there's a, I think the great thing about making art is that you don't know what you're doing. Whether you're an actor, or you're a musician, or you're a poet, whatever practice you're involved in, you know certain things. You take everything that you know up to this point, and then you do something that you don't know anything about. And that space in there is a door that you can open when you make art, and it's outside of all the ordinariness of the rest of your life, or whatever holds you down, or whatever. So I would say that, it is, for me, yes, it's a joyful experience making art, not just breaking plates, but just having the possibility of actually accessing that, being able to make something. You know, I've been terrified of death my whole life. Some people might not care, they might be down with it. But Tarkovsky wrote that the guy that made Andrei Rublev, who was a great Russian film director, he made a beautiful book called Instant Life about Polaroids. But he said that that art is a representation of life, which is different than life. Life contains death. Art, being a representation of life, doesn't contain death. It's a denial of death. And so there can, even if the subject is tragic, there can never be pessimistic art. It could be mediocre or it could be great. But the process of making art is always optimistic. And the idea that you could make something and it could communicate past your, I mean, Lou Reed died last week. I've been hearing Street Hassle in my head every day since that happened. Maybe everybody or other people in this room have other songs that they hear. I mean, he really did something. There's a line in this book, In the Hand of Dante, where this old Jew who is the kind of guardian of all these great books is talking to Dante, who was really confused at the time. And Dante recites some of the Divine Comedies, and he says, "You have served well. You have unveiled the inexpressible. You have become the poem." I think Lou became the poem. And if you can do that, it's not bad. Anybody else have a question? Yes.
You sort of alluded to it in this last answer. I'm just wondering what exactly the hunger was of those conscious phenomena. What the hunger was that led you to add three-dimensional elements to your paintings and then move, and which is something that has evolved throughout your career. What sort of made, obviously that was a big leap from the first clay painting, the first three-dimensional element. So what gave you the desire, whether conscious or not, or what gave you the hunger to?
I wanted to make a painting that I hadn't seen before. And I think a lot of people would like to do that. I still want to do that, whether it's three-dimensional or whether there's, you know, whatever elements become part of the, what's the word? Catalog of possibilities. You know, I kept looking through my experience as a painter. I kept trying to let it take me to another place. For example, I was painting outside, and I had a piece of plastic, and some gesso got on the plastic, and the way the plastic sat on top of the floor made it into something that looked like a beautiful print. So I then thought, okay, I can make a larger stroke. So I dipped this tablecloth into wet paint, and I started to throw it at the canvas and get these images that looked like gravure. So it made me think of Albrecht Dürer, or made me think of, but I'm doing it with a larger stroke. So I thought, okay, can I make a larger stroke than that? So I took these tarps that were 15 feet square and folded them up and dragged them behind my car on the highway in Montauk. And so the asphalt is made out of petroleum. Dirt is another kind of, has other materials. So if I dragged that behind the car, immediately I'd have this chiaroscuro drawing of looked like the sea or the Ivory North Wall or something like that. And that could be a ground to paint on. So that's one way of printing. Then I guess when there was digital kind of imagery that could be made where you didn't have to have the sort of the tedium of, say, a silk screen or which I actually think works for some people. I mean, I think Chris Wolf uses a silk screen in a really nice physical way, and it adds something to his paintings. For me, I wanted to make these paintings where the image was embedded inside the surface, so I started printing on polyester. And then, so I just think that an artist tries to open a range of possibilities for themselves, or that's what I try to do in my work. Anybody else have any questions? Yes? I didn't want to put it on his head. I just wanted a yellow triangular shape with a feather on the top of it. And I just thought, you know, sometimes we feel like we need to, I don't know what audience we're speaking to, but we need, like, an answer, a place to rest, some kind of relief. And then you realize, hey, maybe you're just cheating everybody and yourself. And it may be attractive, but it's not better. Sometimes you can make a painting, it might not be pretty, it might be ugly, but it's better than when it's pretty. And what do they say? Ugly can be beautiful, pretty never. But I gotta say that I spent a lot of days trying to figure out where that yellow hat went. And if you look at the surface, you'll see kind of these little triangles in different places that just sort of painted over. Anybody else? Yes?
I have a lot of questions, but I think the two that come to mind right now is one, can you talk a little bit about scale, as you seem to have a tendency toward the large? And also you mentioned initially that the first plate painting a little bit of the show was actually focused on anti-cubist painting, but to me, having looked at those plate paintings at that show, that was something that I found very much, was what is this gentleman's relationship to cubism or not, especially in terms of the portraiture of the portraits.
Well, I think that painting is about seeing. And painting is about distance. I think if you get up close to a Velasquez painting and you look at the way that the pattern of the pad on the horse is done, there are a lot of little marks. And I think that you end up looking at brush strokes. I think if you look at the pastoral paintings that Goya made for the tapestries that are at the Prado, you'll see those kind of net hats that he painted on these peasants, and they're just wild abstract paintings. So I think that you're kind of, I started painting outside in 1979. And I used to paint inside after I was a cook. Sometimes I was a taxi cook. I just worked at night. I got off and I painted. Probably I got off around 3 o'clock in the morning. I painted till 12 o'clock in the midday, go to sleep for 4 hours and go to work at 5 o'clock. The first plate paintings were painted with electric lights. I remember when I sold the first one and we took it apart and were installing it, and somebody said, it looked terrible. It looked like a woman that's been in a bathroom that had no light. She put a bunch of rouge on her cheeks and somebody beat her up. And the painting, so I know one thing, that paintings that you paint outside look better when you bring them inside. Because the light's more brutal, you can see it in all different kinds of light. And so I started painting, I like to paint outside, I like to paint in daylight. I don't usually paint with, it's rare if I paint with electric lights. When it's dark, I just stop. But the paintings look really good in electric lights. Because the electric lights, they kind of compress everything. The daylight is like air, and you kind of see that. Your other question was?
Cubism.
Oh yeah, so, you know, I think basically Picasso was trying to denote something that was human. He was breaking something down to where he was depicting the way, the idea that you could shade one side of a line, a straight line, darker, and make one side brighter, and comprise an image out of that is very, very primitive. And the beautiful thing about Cubism is its idiosyncratic reality. And you just see somebody cross-hatching and building these things together, and you see the hand in it. You see the human attempt to describe something that, in a way, is indescribable. And the physical fact of that is where that desire resides and where the paintings reside. And when I say an anti-cubist, I don't mean against. I just meant that I was taking a three-dimensional thing And if you stood and you got back far enough, it all just seemed flat. Particularly if you look at, say, the portraits, if you turn the lights down, the images come out. You just see the people, you don't see the plates. And so they're hard to light. So if you put one in a place where the light's right on top of it, you can look at it and think, well, there's nothing on that. It just looks like a bunch of junk. I actually had a maid that was working for me one time. Said, you're a really nice man, but you sure can't paint. I said, thanks a lot. I said, what do you think's in that painting over there? She said, a bunch of plates. I said, just turn the lights down a little bit. So she turned the light down a little enough. She saw an Arab guy with a turban on his head and chandelier, and but you don't always have somebody around you saying, why don't you turn the lights down? Anyway, Peter, would you like to say something?
First of all, I'd like to ask you a question that I haven't asked you before. Before that, I'd like to say that I've started collecting Julian's work in the 80s, and I fell in love with his painting at that time. I've always remained a big fan of Julian. I think he's one of the great painters of our time. And I think his paintings are heroic and wonderful, and I really would like to ask all of you, if you get a chance, to come up to the foundation and take look at some of these paintings yourself in person, because it's very difficult to talk about art. It's one of the toughest things in the world to do. We all have different experiences in terms of studying our history and painting yourselves or whatever. And I think to actually experience looking at these pictures will clearly tell you a lot. I love art, I love film. And I've seen all of Julian's films, and I think I've seen a good share of his paintings. And I think he's a great filmmaker. Many people say to me, always say to me, Julian, that he's a better filmmaker than he is a painter, which is, of course, something that I totally disagree with. I don't take anything away from you as a filmmaker, but it's a different level of
I completely agree with you.
genius. And, knowing this, I know that you pursue doing films when you feel like it. And I don't know whether you know that other artists, of course, that have done this, the art world is difficultly for some reason associated with Hollywood and stars, and it certainly affected Andy Warhol's career, and I think Larry Clark's career, and not that they don't have good careers, but it's just, it's a deviation for people in the art world. I'd like to ask you, how do you feel about that? In the 80s, every young artist was measured against you as the star of the person who was painting figuratively, changed in the look of art at that moment. And this was wondering what you think.
What do I think about what?
What do you think about the effect doing film on your career, on painting, and how do you feel the art world is?
I'd like somebody else to answer this question. You answer it? Yeah, okay, I guess it's my turn, right? Like Otis Redding said. I think that film is something that is more electronically friendly. I think people can, they see things on television, it communicates to a wider audience. There's part of my brain that's a storyteller. When Jean-Michel died, the guy came to talk to me about him. I knew Jean, and I thought I could help this man to get a truer picture of because he was a tourist, the guy that was going to do it. So after a while, I realized it was impossible, so I did it myself. Nobody really wanted me to make that movie, and a lot of people are very proprietary about their memory of John. Anyway, made the movie. It is what it is. And then I guess I was comfortable with working with different actors and with people, and I was always a huge film fan. And so I guess if you're a painter and you tell an actor, yeah, I like that or whatever, it's great, you know, it's a nice compliment. But if you're the director, they do what you say. And you can also be involved. You can augment what they will do. You can tell a story a certain way. And I just think as an artist, I like the possibilities of actually being engaged in filming something and interacting with these actors. And I have to say that, I mean, I made a painting of Andy Warhol in 1983 or 84, maybe 83. And Andy stood in front of me and I painted him and we talked, and he made a painting of me too, but he did it a different way. But I mean, I painted him from life. And I also directed Before Night Falls with Javier Bardem. And somebody once asked me a question, you know, how do you compare painting Andy or directing Javier? I mean, is there a similarity in that? And I think what happens is you have an involvement with people. I mean, I didn't make that movie by myself. Javier Bardem made that movie with me. When I made The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, Matthew Almeric made that movie with me. We did that together. It was a collaborative thing where we were trying to do something that I think really hadn't been done before. I mean, and it was amazing to build a room where Matthew Almeric could be inside this room and he could say whatever the hell he wanted to say, and the people did not know what he was saying while he was responding, and basically the camera was in front of the actors and actresses while they were communicating to the camera. I heard what he was saying. We invented a kind of communication that I found extremely interesting, and I enjoyed doing that. I had no thought that, oh, is the art world going to think that Julian thinks he's too big for the art world, so now he's in the movie world or whatever. I mean, I never made a nickel making a movie. I did it because I just wanted to tell these stories. I'm sorry, yes?
What films are you developing now? And is there something that you would like to bring to film that you haven't figured out just kind of, you know, how to make it work?
Well, I think every film that I ever made was sort of an impossible thing to do. Maybe I'll do something at some time, but I really just feel like painting now. I write stuff all the time, and I'll put it away for a while, and there are things that I'd like to do. But I don't think there's, but I do believe that people don't like it when you do too many things. And they don't like it when they're thinking about, that's why they love artists that keep making the same kind of art all the time. Because they think, okay, we've got our product here, here's our logo, and they keep doing that, and we know what it is, and we can get one of those, we can get 10 of those, and they have some kind of value. I mean, they don't like it when somebody is a chameleon or they change. You know, obviously, I made different kind of paintings that had different kind of appearances, but I also went beyond that in some way and made these films. I agree with Peter. I don't think that I'm a great movie director, actually. I mean, I never, my pride or was never thought, oh, I'm like, I was just trying to tell a story. And I guess I told it a certain way, and the way that I told it had to do with being a painter, which means I live in a horizontal plane like Walt Whitman. I don't have hierarchical notions about whether you ought to be looking at somebody's foot or their head, or, you know, to get that, tie that thing into a nice, neat bow for somebody to digest. I don't mind if they look at something for a while, they have to watch it a couple of times. And I tell you, I've never made a movie where I had to compromise. And because there was a producer, or there was whatever, either we put in the money ourselves, or I put the money in myself, and I just, and at the same time, people seem to think that I wasn't painting when I was doing that. It doesn't really take that long to make a movie. There's pre-production, there's post-production, but usually when I was making Before Night Falls, or I was painting, except for maybe the 60 days when you're shooting, or 30 days when you're shooting. But for some reason, but the fact of the matter is, if you do what you want to do, fuck it. Don't worry about what people think. You might not make as much money as, should my work be as expensive as Jeff Koons' work? Absolutely. I mean, but I made those movies, so they thought, well, Julian's not interested in painting, he made those movies. He doesn't need money or whatever. I mean, who the fuck can imagine what goes on in people's heads? But you can't think about that. You gotta do what you want to do if you want to make art. Make it the way you want. Don't give a shit what people think. And you will suffer the consequences. But at the end of the day, when you're getting ready to die, you'll have a big fucking smile on your face because you didn't compromise. So, in a couple of years, I'll make a movie. I'll make a movie about Caravaggio when I feel like it, or about Dante. There's a great book in the Hand of Dante by Nick Tosh, which is really, really amazing.
What's stopping you from doing a Caravaggio?
Nothing. I want to paint. I don't feel like making a movie right now. I mean, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm sitting here with you guys because I want to be here. I mean, I'm really happy that the show is at Peter's Place. I'm really interested in people getting to see paintings that they haven't seen and they've only seen pictures of. And I think the world is sort of catching up. Maybe, who knows? Yes.
Who, younger contemporary artists, who do you like right now?
Who do I like? Oh, there's too many of them to name.
Oh, come on, one.
Who do I like? I think it's irrelevant who I like. It really is.
Well, no, I mean, it just interests me, like, not in terms of like competitive nature, but who sort of like you, not that you fill your shoes or not that you be.
I am not taking it personally, like I don't think someone's going to take my place. And that's not why I'm not answering you. It's just
Well,
like.
who's doing something new? I mean, have you seen anyone that you think, oh, they're making a painting that I've never seen before, like you said about yourself? Or is there no one?
I think there are a lot of good artists. And whether I name them or I don't, they're going to keep doing it. And I'd rather not pick one and leave one out because it's not fair. But it's irrelevant what I think. I mean, it's funny because we were talking about, I don't know what I was talking about the other day. It was about some movie, and I thought it was terrible, and it made, $50 billion or something like that. So what do I know? Anyway.
Well, if it's irrelevant what you think, why are we all sitting here listening?
It's irrelevant what I think about some things. If you feel like you could use some of the information I gave you about being an artist, God bless you. If not, then, who knows if you had a good time or not. I mean, I'm not Howard Cosell, I can't judge. But anyway, that sounds like a good sign to call it a day. Unless anybody's got anything they want to say, yes?
I want to ask a question. I'm really curious about the dynamic of the relationship between you and Peter. This is a joint
friendship that functions as like a collector, artist, curator, artist. You know, you did paintings of Peter's family. I'm just curious about that dynamic and like how it turned into something so productive and exciting. You know, with a show like this that just happened.
Should I let you answer that first?
No, you answer.
I think that I've been very, very fortunate to have somebody that has thought that there was some value to what I did, that actually felt like they wanted to live with my work and collected it, and he's been extremely supportive for a really long time. And I think I've been very lucky. It was my father told me that he loved me. Anyway, there you go.
Well, I've known Julian for a long, long time, long enough to not ask him the question you asked. But I think that we've been good friends for many, many years, 25 years, and it really started. I collected the paintings before I ever. I collected some paintings before I ever knew him. We met, really after I started collecting his work, and we became good friends. We've done a lot of things together. We've traveled together. Been with his family, and he's been with my family, and we just spent a lot of time together. I watched hundreds of movies with him, and we've shared that kind of interest in film. And I produced his first film, Basquiat, and we worked on that together, and I saw the kind of director he is, and he's a real pro. If he says he's going to get this thing done, he gets it done. And, so just with all that, we just were very friendly, and when you're friends with an artist, you realize that they're human, like everybody else. You can't look at them like star athlete, and they're your friend. And so you see that they're like every human being. They're normal in many ways, and you make mistakes with them, and they make mistakes with you. And just throughout the whole thing, they've always remained as a person that really is dedicated to his work. I think he's work here, and maybe he is saying that people don't like when you do too many things. Well, he's a guy that does a lot of things well. I think there's a certain amount of jealousy about that, and people, can't do that. And it can be difficult. I've been friends with a number of artists, and I think my experience being friendly with artists has been really good on me. There's a certain bond that you share as a collector and them as an artist, and kind of hopefully look after one.
Is that it? Yes, yes.
Leo represented Julian for a period, a short period of time with Mary Boone. Leo was an extraordinary man. I mean, he kind of came very close to him because when I started collecting, I was a very young guy. And,
How old were you?
Basically 18 or 19 years old. I met Leo through Bruno Bischofberger, art dealer from Switzerland, who was a great art historian and a great art dealer and collector, and who was also a big collector, by the way, of Julian's work. And I met Leo because I was very interested in more classical things. And, I was very interested in Renaissance painting and all the way up to Impressionist painting. Met Bruno when I was 15, and he sort of convinced me that there were so many great things were happening in New York at that time that I should meet Leo, who was sort of in the center, which I did, and relationship with the artist. He was really old school, really cared about the artist, really was very involved with them socially and helping them, and built, a great collection himself. I always admired that the artist always trusted him and stayed with him, and it was a great man.
I actually left him. But, yeah.
I was just wondering, when you were younger, did you have this idea that you would be the man that you are today, or, this did you say, oh, I know that I'm going to be this artist? Did you have any idea?
I don't know what man
Well,
I didn't have this idea.
Some people are like, I just have this feeling, that I know that, or I'm in this.
If you had asked me that when I was a kid, I might have said yeah.
Yeah.
But if you ask me that now, I think it's very hard to, I think your reality keeps shifting all the time. Anyway, I'm going to answer your question now about artists that I think are good. Josh Smith is here. I saw, and what happens is when I see things, it's not that I just like blanketly love everything, but things that stick in my head or I remember. I was in Venice and he painted something blue on a wall there, and it really stuck out with all of the different things in the landscape. He painted his name. That blue shape that was on top of the wall there? Yeah. Outdoors. Okay, name and see the next. I didn't even know what it said. But there were the way that the blue sat on the plaster. Okay, so it's laminated. Right?
It's a miracle.
Okay, but whatever it is he the author of that thing? Yes, you are. Even though the thing was printed by somebody else onto this piece, I remembered that particular thing. I went to Chris Wool's show the other day. I saw some paintings there that I thought were really good. I saw Andy Warhol's shadow paintings in a supermarket in Houston a long time ago, and I think about it a lot. I have a wide range of likes and a lot of dislikes. I think some of Neo Rausch's paintings are really interesting. Some other people might not like them. But Blinky Palermo is a guy whose paintings I like. He died in 1977, but I think the paintings are things that are alive now. Whether the whole point is that these things are alive and you can see them and you can and they hold up. But when he was alive, he was eating hamburgers and nobody was kind of really thinking about him. And in fact, he died before he ever had a show in New York. There was a show called The People of New York that Heiner Friedrich put on after he died. So I'm just saying it has a lot to do with just your personal taste. I think Sigmar Polka is a great painter.
Julian, do you consider Picasso painting as part of your body of work?
I guess I just did them for the fun of it. I wanted to see if I could do it. I guess I don't. Right? Do you?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to consider them part of my work now.
I was just looking at the Van Gogh book, and he copied a lot of stuff, like Joyous. They're Van Goghs.
Do you hear what he's saying? He's saying that Picasso copied, that Van Gogh was copying other people's art, and they're Van Goghs, and he was wondering, I made some Picasso paintings, I wanted to see if I could do it. I've had some, and I know the paintings really well, and
What period Picasso was?
late. I made 2 late paintings. But what was interesting, or what made me do it, Cy Twombly came over to my studio years ago, and I was painting a painting in 1985, and actually the walk home, he saw these drawings on the floor. It was just on some, what do you call it, the temporary palette paper. So I had these purple marks on it. He said, "Can I have that?" I said, "Yeah." And he saw this other drawing with a ballpoint pen of a mummy, and he said, "Can I have that?" I said, "Sure." He said, "I'll give you something for it someday." I said, "All right." His brother-in-law, Giorgio Franchetti, I happened to be in Italy, and he took me to Cy's house. Cy was not there in Bassano, and next to his bed, there were these two drawings of mine, framed in these 15th century Florentine frames, right next to his bed. And then there was this other drawing that had a beautiful Italian frame on it from the 17th century. It was a line drawing. I said, "Boy, that's a really nice Picasso." And he said, "Cy drew that." So I thought, fuck it, if Cy could do that, I think I'll try that. And so, you know, I really wanted this Red Musketeer painting that Maya Picasso owned, and she didn't want to sell it. And so I thought, okay, I painted it. My daughter Lola came home, was out in Montauk, and she saw the paint and said, "When did you get that?" I said, "Today." Anyway, I think we should all go home and, you know, like, stop doing this.